What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another video. So as you guys know, with Chapter 5 coming out, ranks reset again. We had 1 month to build them up during OG, and then they're all the way back to the beginning. But don't you guys worry, you know I've got you covered. In today's video, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know to rank up super fast in Fortnite Chapter 5. This video is going to basically cover all the best strategy and gameplay tips that you guys are going to need to make sure you can rank up super quickly and hopefully reach Unreal this season. Before we get into it though, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more. We're getting closer and closer to 200,000 guys. The support is absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much. And of course, guys, if you want to show some extra support, then consider using code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, and it seriously does help me out a ton. As always, a giant thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, guys, and without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. So the first topic I want to talk about in today's video is going to be a pretty obvious one, which is the best game mode. This has been one of the most common discussions when it comes to ranked, so we're going to clear it up right now. Now, in Chapter 5, Fortnite still isn't super clear about whether you gain more percentage through any particular game mode. However, I will say that anecdotally, through my own experience, I've found that you pretty much gain the exact same amount of percentage relative to your performance regardless of which mode you play. Whether you're playing solos, squads, or whatever game mode in ranked, if you perform just as good relative to your team size in both of those modes, then you're gonna gain just about the same amount. It really doesn't make any meaningful difference. So therefore, what I'm gonna recommend to you guys is basically just to play whichever mode you have a good team for. What I mean by this is you want to have a good team, but you don't want to go out of your way to find random players just to fill out a certain mode. If you don't have any players you rock with, then you can simply run solos, and that's going to result in better performance than finding random players that you may or may not be good with. On the other hand, if you have a good duo or whatever it might be, whatever mode it might be, then go ahead and play with them if you feel like you have good chemistry and you're going to perform well. Just don't force yourself to play a mode just because it's a team mode, because that's typically going to make you lose percentage or at least not progress as fast. So in conclusion, play whichever mode you can fill up a good team for. And if you don't have any good teammates, then just run solos. Getting into the next section, and this one is going to be all about early game. One of the most pivotal parts of any ranked game, regardless of what chapter or season you're in, has always been your early game. Dying off spawn is one of the worst things you can do for your rank. You're going to lose multiple percent, and basically if that happens a lot, you can have some insane pop-off games, but if you're dying off spawn a bunch, you're not going to make any progress. So being able to get some good loot and materials, preferably get a couple kills, and most importantly, survive into mid and end game is absolutely critical. As you'd expect, the first consideration here is going to be where to drop. Now, the first decision to make is whether you want to land at a smaller unnamed spot or whether you want to land at a POI. By landing at an unnamed spot, like one of those smaller locations on the map, you're going to secure slightly less loot, although by developing a strong loot route, you can mostly offset that, to be honest. And one other downside is you probably won't start the game off with any kills. However, that's also not a huge deal because kills count more later in the game regardless. If you don't know, Epic basically makes it so kills off spawn or kills early in the game, they still count and they're still helpful, but they're not going to gain you as much rank as the kills later in the game will. That's one of the few things that Epic has been super clear about when it comes to ranked. On the other hand, if you're a confident fighter and you can land at a named POI and clear it out, you're going to get some really good loot, probably drop a couple kills, and you're probably going to leave with good HP, materials, and maybe even a medallion leaving your drop spot. So overall, for my confident, aggressive players out there, you're going to want to drop at a named POI, especially if you're not in the highest ranks yet. And for my more low-key players who like to focus survival more than fighting, go to a smaller, unnamed spot to improve your chances of making it into the parts of the game where you actually shine the most. There's nothing wrong with playing passive off spawn, and you can always make up for the kills later in the game, and you're even going to gain more rank from those. When it comes to early game fights, if you run into anyone at your drop spot, one thing you're really going to want to focus on is getting third-party kills. With the lack of siphon health pretty much for the past couple of seasons, third-partying in early game is a fantastic strategy. Of course, this is only going to apply if you're in a POI with more than 2 other people, or at least 2 other people rather. But if you can get in on a fight in progress, then chances are they're not going to have an opportunity to heal up or get their mats back up or anything like that, and it should result in some pretty easy kills, especially in early game. Another really important tip for you guys here is when you're in a highly contested POI, you're going to want to play near the outside of the POI. This is because most players end up fighting near the middle of POIs. Typically what happens is everyone kind of lands at the outskirts and then they make their way towards the center and end up in fights, or they land in the center and end up getting pushed. And by staying near the outside of your POI for the majority of your looting time, it's going to set you up in a prime position to find players and to third party, and it'll make it so much easier to disengage if you need to run away. As I said, surviving off spawn is so important, so if you do have to disengage, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that in ranked. Another quick topic I want to cover is going to be medallions. One of the biggest changes in Chapter 5 was the addition of medallions, which spawn at different POIs. They're super powerful because they don't take up an inventory slot, and they heal 3 HP per second to the player that holds them. Or I shouldn't have said HP, I meant to say shield. They heal 3 shield per second, they don't heal HP, but they still are super powerful. And as you'd expect, one consideration is whether or not you should actually implement these into your ranked strategy, and if so, how you can go about doing that. I will say that you don't have to have a medallion to play super well. You can still get a lot of kills and perform really well in ranked without one, but especially if you're going for fights and stuff like that, and especially in endgame when people start to be in shambles, it's going to be really helpful helpful to have some, so if you can get one, it's definitely worth it. So in general, I'd recommend you make an effort to get medallions if your situation allows for it, especially if you're playing solos. You can do this in two primary ways. You can either land near a medallion, win the fights to claim your POI, and secure it that way, or you can simply fight someone in mid-game who has a medallion already. This is going to depend on your own preference, and personally, I like fighting for it just because I'm confident in my fighting even without it, but it's all really going to depend on the individual. However you decide to approach actually doing it, getting a medallion or even multiple medallions is going to be so beneficial for your game. Just be careful about it because you will run into some more fights since your general area is going to be marked on the map. And keep in mind, the more medallions you get, the closer this area actually is to you. So if you get all 5 medallions, for example, everybody's pretty much going to know exactly where you are. It might result in you getting targeted a little bit more, but especially if it's later in the game or something like that, it doesn't really matter. That's just something to keep in mind. With that said, guys, getting into what I want to talk about next, and this is going to be the optimal playstyle. So we've already discussed the best ways to be more consistent in early game, but the next topic that comes up when we talk about ranking up is going to be your playstyle, which to me primarily means how you play after you get out of early game. Some people try their hardest to camp and farm placement, others play aggressive and push for high kills. This is another one of those rifts in the Fortnite community. Everyone kind of has their playstyle when it comes to this, but I'm going to tell you guys what's going to be best for you in ranked. Now, the first thing to note is that both of these strategies can rank you up fast, and depending on your skill set, you might be better off playing either more or less aggressive, but my recommended method is one of calculated aggression. By calculated aggression, I basically mean playing aggressive at the right times to make sure that you can get better loot and secure some kills, but also not playing overly aggressive and end up dying early. The way I recommend you approach your mid and end game is by one simple rule: play for fights that you can benefit from. For example, if you can gain some loot, gain some better positioning, or even just get a solid refresh, it might be worth taking the fight. This is especially true if you can tag your opponent and get some pre-fight damage off before you push. My preferred method for this is to focus on pushing players on the dead side of zone, aka the areas where people are not rotating into. This means you avoid the crowded areas and you kind of push the people you find on the edges of zone or in the quiet areas of zone. This is going to allow you to take much safer fights, minimize third parties, and overall you're just going to find yourself playing way more consistent, getting some good kills, and surviving much longer. If you're already really good at fighting, then you could consider going for the crowded areas of zone, but you want to keep in mind that third parties are always roaming around. So be smart about how you approach your fights regardless of what playstyle you're playing. Some people also prefer to get a couple kills early in the game, get kitted up, and then play straight placement, and that's definitely a good approach for those of you who aren't as confident with fighting. However, one thing to consider with that is, especially when it comes to your overall improvement as a player, exposure to fights is one of the main things that's going to make you better at fighting and make you a better overall player. So even if you're generally a more passive player, pushing into fights in ranked might be what you need in order to maximize your improvement and ultimately rank up more long term. You know, I think a lot of people do get caught up in the idea of getting super high in rank right now, and granted that is the main concept of this video, but you want to keep in mind too that the way you play in ranked can either help you or hurt you in the long term. If you're just camping and you end up in a super high rank where you just die every single game because the players are better than you, then you're really not going to make any improvement, so what's the point of being able to say that you're that rank anyway? So of course you want to focus on ranking up and you want to make your rank as high as possible, but keep in mind you want to play in a way that's actually going to help you improve too. That's just my little rant about that. Hopefully that helps you guys out. And all in all, your optimal playstyle primarily depends on your skill level when it comes to fighting, but hopefully this gave you guys some good ideas as to how you can optimize your playstyle to not only rank up fast, but improve at the game as well, since that's going to be what really matters in the long term here. And ultimately, by implementing a good playstyle in your mid and end game, as well as surviving off spawn and optimizing the other areas of your game, you're going to find yourself ranking up super fast. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to rank up super fast in Fortnite Chapter 5. Overall, we covered a lot in this video, and hopefully it helped you guys out. Ultimately, if you follow all the tips in this video and you optimize your strategy to the best extent possible, you're going to find yourself ranking up way faster in Fortnite Chapter 5. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more, and as always, guys, it's super appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, it takes like 5 seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a ton. As always, guys, thank you so much to everyone who uses it. You guys are amazing. And finally, guys, let me know down in the comments what videos you want to see next. I've got a couple of videos planned already, but I'm always looking for new ideas, so let me know what you want to see. But with all that said, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.